definitely not dressed appropriately. But I thought, this is me, and I'm an old man. So she left, and I asked Paige, I was like, is it just me, or was she stoned? And she was like, oh no, she was stoned. The clothes were all wrong. She's just all wrong.
What was
She's
she
like,
wearing?
it was a short dress, but the sweater was longer than the dress. What's the problem?
Oh, so it wasn't like she had the boobs out or nothing. It was
Well,
just
she did that too, yeah. But it was a funky conversation with the way the dress was and the way everything was cut and looking, and it was just all wrong.
yeah, definitely not business attire.
Oh
Like
God, no.
I imagine even in your line of business, business attire is still relatively casual.
Yes, yes,
You're wearing a polo shirt and either jeans or khaki pants, and you know, for the ladies, it's not much more formal than that either. But still,
dude. It was something you go clubbing in on Saturday night, not something you'd wear to my office on a Tuesday afternoon.
oh weird. And
It
being
was
stoned
weird,
at work's a super no.
dude. I was looking at her. I was like, "Is it me or she?" No, she's stoned. Okay, there you go.
Stoned on pills or pot?
Yeah, I want to say she's pot, but I didn't get a close
Okay.
enough look to know.
That didn't give you a whole lot of confidence in her abilities in the forklift industry.
Not really.
It's
No.
certainly a thing you don't want to do while driving a forklift is, be stoned.
Nope. Okay. I always want to shoot.
Although if you're somebody you and I know, you could be drunk as you could possibly be. You can be blind drunk and drive a forklift, but you know.
Bear with me. I'm getting Shadowland ready. Take me just a moment.
Oh, we're doing Shadowland first?
Sure.
Okay. I had AVX open. Let me
All right, well, dude, AVX it is. You ready?
oh my god, I've already navigated away from it.
Okay. Okay.
I had forgotten how many tie-ins were in AVX.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it, I assume.
Yeah. No, for the love of God, no. I'm gonna have to leave Shadowland and oh my God.
Dude, we can go to Shadowland. I don't care.
I'm here. It's I can't find the information I'm looking for in the Shadowland thing.
Hmm.
Oh my God.
Dude, so my aunt got home probably 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes before we started this thing, knowing full well that, when she got home, I was like, hey, Pat and I are doing the podcast in about 20 minutes, at this time.
Right.
Just letting you know with I mean, not 5 minutes before we started, she wants to tell me all these things and show me all this stuff and wants me to get my opinion on this and on that. And I'm like, no, you had 40 minutes to do all this. You're not going to pin me down 5 minutes before I have an obligation. And this is something it'll wait until I'm done. Give me an hour, hour and a half tops, and then we can talk all about it. It's like, dude, have a little consideration. There's a reason I tell you, hey, we're doing it at this time. It's
Yeah.
so you don't disturb me 500 times while we're doing it.
Right.
That don't translate.
Yep. I understand.
And I know I should be a little more understanding given the circumstances, but did you find you were looking for?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All righty. We are doing AVX.
We're doing Shadowland.
Oh my god, dude!
I told you I was looking for something in Daredevil.
Okay, give me let me navigate to the thing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. All right. Counting down. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast, where we take a deeper dive into the long box that is Marvel Unlimited. I am Pat.
And I am Sean.
And we're the guys from the 6 Month Behind podcast, here to expound your wisdom once again on what you can find in the Marvel Unlimited app, which, by the way, has crossed 25,000 issues. How you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
I'm okay. All things considered.
Yeah, your shoulder hurts. Other than that, things are fine.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just got through, having somebody take it and twist it and torque it and bend it. So, other than that, it's great.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Great.
So we've been talking about this episode for like a year, and we just never got around to recording it. So today we're going to record it. And it's Shadowland from Daredevil. And if you go into the browse section of your Unlimited book and pull up events, and it's Shadowland. And Daredevil has this interesting history in that writers have a way of leaving Daredevil in precarious situations for the next writer.
Right. It's so like a tradition.
It is. Yes. It's he's been dead several times. That's because that's how writers left him and said, okay, figure your way out of this mess.
Yeah. Well, I forget who it started with, but it may have been Kevin Smith in the 90s, but ever since then, it's been like a rite of passage or tradition that whenever a writer leaves Daredevil, they put him in this god awful situation, and the new writer has to get him out of it.
Yeah. So Ed Brubaker was writing Daredevil, tremendous run on Daredevil, and as he was doing it, it was the hand were kind of in flux, and they were in the process of bringing back the Kingpin, and the Daredevil and Stick wanted Daredevil to run the hand. And Daredevil was like, no, I'm not going to run the hand. And then they said, okay, if you want, we'll get the Kingpin too. So they began making arrangements with Kingpin and Lady Bullseye for Kingpin to take over the hand. At the last moment, Daredevil steps in and says, I'll do it. Okay. I'll be the leader of the hand. And there's these three guys who are behind it, and they're kind of behind the scenes manipulating the whole thing. And that's where Brubaker left the book, was Daredevil running the hand. So that's when Andy Diggle picked up the series, and I wasn't real familiar with him, and he hasn't done a lot of comic book writing, but he had this run on Daredevil that led into Shadowland. And what happened is, picking up where Brubaker left it, he basically just starts Daredevil down this path from hero to vigilante to in-betweener to out-and-out villain. Okay, just walks him down the path. And what Shadowland technically is during Brubaker's run, Bullseye had blown up this building there in Hell's Kitchen and killed, 70 people or something, whatever. So Daredevil builds this Japanese building there in Hell's Kitchen that's called Shadowland, and it's a prison, it's a castle, it's all in one.
It's a fortress.
It's a fortress. Thank you. It's basically a castle, but yeah, it's a fortress all in one.
Yeah, in the middle of Hell's Kitchen.
In the middle of Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And one of the first things he does is goes after Bullseye, and he catches Bullseye, and he's like, okay, we've done this dance again. What are we going to do now? And Daredevil kills him. Just kills him, dude. And at that point, everybody's like, what just happened? What, where? The heroes are like, what, where, who, what? where did this happen? And that's the point where he really crossed the line. And, there's the whole series is really good because the heroes, they know he's Daredevil. they know he's Matt Murdock. They know he's good, but they also know he's really messed up at this point. So they start coming to him and trying to attack him. And this is what you basically where you basically have the New York street heroes like Iron Fist and Power Man and Luke Cage, I should say, Moon Knight. Moon Knight does something really cool because he without the costume, without anything, he just allows himself to get captured and goes to jail. They're in Shadowland.
Yeah.
So you can figure out what's going on in the jail.
Yeah, he infiltrates it.
Yeah.
I assume Spider-Man and Punisher get mixed up in this too.
Spider-Man and Punisher are there. Punisher just wants to pull a bullet in his brain. And everybody's like,
that's what Frank always wants to do.
Yeah, and everybody else is like, dude, you can't do that. Let's find other ways.
Right. This is during the time when Bucky's captain. Steve's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Bucky's there. This was a serious crossover event. And that because you didn't just have Shadowland, and you didn't just have it running in Daredevil in the Shadowland limited series. Dude, there were a lot of miniseries tying in with it. It crossed over into Thunderbolts. It crossed over into Moon Knight. It crossed into a bunch of books because it just did, man. Ghost Rider was in it. It's a really great series, and what often happens with these characters, whether it's Daredevil or Spider-Man or Superman in particular, whoever, you wind up saying, okay, what do we do next with them? What do we do? And this is one of those times where they took a character in Daredevil who'd been around forever and really did something creative and really did something original with him to just get him to just do something, besides having swing around the city and beat up Stiltman.
Right.
And it was really good. And how it ends, when we do these what next, I'm often conflicted as whether or not I should say the end.
Dude, this has been almost 10 years ago. It's fine.
Okay, cool. That'll apply to our next couple of podcasts too. Turns out Daredevil is possessed by the Beast. And we've seen the Beast a lot in recent Daredevil comic books.
Yeah. He's the demon that the Hand worships.
Right. He was demon possessed. And what they actually do is they kill him, and at the last minute, Elektra resurrects him. And it's after this series that he goes off to San Francisco and lives in San Francisco for a couple of years with another girlfriend and, whatever.
Yeah, he has a returning to life crisis.
Yes. Yeah. And I can tell you, he's fixing to have another one of those in the current Daredevil series.
Yeah, he is.
Because they're fixing to kill him again.
Yeah. I remember reading Thunderbolts at the time and being super confused when this event crossed into it because I wasn't reading Daredevil. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized it was a Shadowland thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And see, I was reading a lot of comic books at this time, but I wasn't reading Daredevil. And this was one of those events that I had always wanted to get into and go back and read, but I never did. But it touched all the parts of the Marvel Universe in some way or another. I mean, it got discussed in Avengers and both the regular Avengers and New Avengers at the time. I mean, it was one of those things where, it was touched on a little bit everywhere, and it was always kind of like how Kingpin being the mayor of New York is now. It had ramifications in other parts of the Marvel Universe.
I'll tell you another thing that's cool about it is Dark Reign actually ends during Shadowland. So at the beginning of Shadowland, you got Norman Osborn and Hammer in power. By the end of Shadowland, 5 months later, whatever it is, in comic book time, Hammer has been, has Norman Osborn's in jail. Hammer's been disassembled at S.H.I.E.L.D. again. And at one point in the comic, but there's like nobody in control, and they're all sitting around like, well, who's going to go get him? Well, Norman's in jail and nobody's taken his place yet. So what do we do? It's really an interesting time. The Kingpin's good in this because the Kingpin and Lady Bullseye wind up helping the heroes. So they transition from villains to heroes for the series, because obviously the Kingpin's got ulterior motives.
Yeah.
But it's really good, man. The art is very good.
It's Billy Tan doing the pencils, and I always like Billy Tan's work.
and it doesn't. So often these big events are like super cosmic events, like Doctor Doom ending everything with the power of the Beyonder, or
Right.
Thanos
Or,
getting the Infinity Gauntlet, or Gamora getting the Infinity Gauntlet, or whatever.
yeah, or some race of aliens comes from beyond time to destroy the universe or something like that.
Right, but this is just an event with the basic heroes in New York dealing with crime and violence and the things that go on in New York.
Yeah,
And
and it was super localized, and I really enjoy that about some of these events. And I wish they would do more like this, because while you had your main Shadowland book, it crosses over into Daredevil. They put out a few like Shadowland titled books that are, there's like one or two issues of. There's a
right,
Bullseye book. There's a Daughters of the Shadow, who I assume is Misty Knight and the other lady who are the Daughters of the
yes,
Dragon. There's a
Colin Wing.
Yeah, Colleen Wing. And it crosses over into a couple of things like Thunderbolts, but unlike this War of the Realms event that's coming soon,
Oh my god,
it's not going to touch literally every comic book being published by Marvel.
dude! I got a previews last week, and War of the Realms covered like 25 books in 1 month. And it was
That's too
like,
much.
dude, it was just overwhelming, man. It was just, and there's all these one shots and all these limited series tying with it, and it crossed into all these titles. And
Yeah, and
you're just like, dude,
I
wow.
guess if you're Jason Aaron, and Jason Aaron's one of your big guns at Marvel these days, if he's been writing this huge epic saga that is Thor, and this is his big finale, you let him do this, and that's fine, because I like Jason Aaron. You and I have talked plenty about how much we like Jason Aaron's work, but these events just
Dude,
and the issue is that I don't want to have to buy every single comic book that's $4.99 and $5.99 and $6.99 for some of the special ones to know what's going on in this whole thing.
yeah, and I'm just not going to do it, because over the last few years I have bought event books, and I'm just tapping out, man. I'm just tapping out. I'm just like, no, I'm not doing it. I can read all the stuff on Marvel. I've got trades I've bought from Comixology. I got trades I check out of the library. I got the DC app. I got Marvel Unlimited. No, I'm not paying $5 twice a month to get that. I'm just not doing it.
And I would really like to see a return to these smaller, limited events that still have big ramifications. I mean, it was a big deal in Daredevil's life for a long time.
Yeah.
The events of Shadowland. And so I just don't see why we can't continue to do that. We saw the same thing in X-Men recently with Extermination. We saw the same thing with that Venomized event. It was 5 or 6 issues and was its own self-contained thing. There's no reason we can't do this. And I wish we saw it a little more often.
Yeah, and this is not a long read either. This is 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Okay, maybe it is a long read. It's 30 books.
That's if you read all the tie-ins. But if if you just read the main Shadowland comic and the Daredevil stuff, you'll get the gist of it.
Dude, look at Civil War sometimes. That thing's like 123 books.
Yeah, all the tie-ins and everything. That thing is massive.
Yeah, you can read all the tie-ins and everything here, and it's 30 books.
Yeah, this is an afternoon of reading if you really bear down on it.
Yeah.
Or, speaking of bearing down, it's, a week's worth of reading if you're just reading in the bathroom.
Speaking of bearing down, that's funny. That's good. This guy today, I'm at therapy, and Angelo tells one of his jokes. I like Angelo. He's my favorite therapist. And he's like, I like ceilings, but I'm not a fan. I'm just, dude, that's bad, man. That's bad. And here's why I like these events is you can read the Shadowland and Daredevil books and skip the other books. Or in my case, I might just thumb through them, see what's happening, see who's in it, look at the art. Okay. Yeah. Nothing really here. All right. Move on, and in like 3 to 5 minutes, thumb through the book real quick.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about this being a visual medium is you can do this. You can skim a book, look at what's going on, and go, okay, I see what happened here.
Yeah. So
So,
anyway, that's Shadowland. It's a great series. Look it up. If you don't know what it is, it's there. It's really entertaining.
yeah, probably one of the best Daredevil events or stories that have happened in probably a decade.
That don't involve Frank Miller. Well, they do involve the Kingpin and the Punisher. I was going to say they don't involve Kingpin and Bullseye, but they do involve Kingpin and Bullseye, but they don't involve Frank Miller. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com.
There will be a link to these books and this podcast and a few other notes at the website, which is www.6monthsbehind.com.
And we will have another episode for you next week. I believe we're discussing, what are we discussing? Avengers versus X-Men?
Yeah, AVX, and
we have a special surprise coming from something unexpected.
Yes.
In light of some recent news. So we're going to do a what's next on something special.
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, we will see you all next time.
Peace. That's about 16 minutes by my count. He's waving at you, Nay.
She waved back.
Oh, she waved back. Okay, cool. All right. What's up next? Identity Crisis or AVX?
Let's knock out AVX.
Okay. You throw those notes up there?
You talking to me?
Yeah. Or I can.
What notes?
The few notes on the artist and what happens and all that sort of thing.
Hang on, let me open my documents. Today, Google Docs today. Did you see Google killed Google Plus today?
Today was the day, yes.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I am ready whenever you are. You need anything before I start recording again? No. Okay. Love you.
She shook her head at the back of your head.
Oh, I didn't see her shaking her head at the back of my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's because you don't have eyes in the back of your head. So she couldn't see you shake your head.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
And there I can look in.
Do what?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast, where we take a deeper dive into the digital loan box that is Marvel Unlimited. I'm Pat.
And I am Sean.
We're the guys from 6 Months Behind, and this week, we're talking about AVX. How you doing, man?
I am well. How are you?
I am very good. Before we forget, the website with all the notes we're fixing to talk about will be on www.6monthsbehind.com. The email is.
You can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com.
Now, normally those notes aren't important, but in this case, they are, because the Marvel app is confusing. This is about 60 books here, more or less, maybe 50. But if you look, it starts with a couple of Avengers books, an X-Men book, and then A1. So AVX number 0, AVX.
Okay.
So it doesn't start with AVX number 0. Now this is in if you go to browse and then go to events, you get an events. Okay. If you go to reading list and click on AVX in list, you get a different set of books, which is really confusing. So what I'm actually going to do, this is close. It misses that number 0, and it misses a couple of other things, which makes it confusing, because that 0 book is really really good. And the Zero book really sets the stage for the whole series. And it's not here in these 43 comics that are in AVX.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the first issue of this, and you don't if you just dive into Avengers versus X-Men #1, you don't get any setup. So you don't really know what the conflict is.
Right. And whereas if you go click on the reading list, you get that number 0 and you get some of the background, but you don't get all of extinction. Extinction. That's the Alabama way. That's the Alabama way of saying it.
Extinction.
Yeah, you don't get some of these other tie-ins. You just get AVX.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's just it can be confusing.
Right. It doesn't. It's like when you go to read the Phoenix Saga. It doesn't give it. It starts at where the Phoenix Saga begins and doesn't give you any of the lead up.
Right. It doesn't start at issue 100 where she becomes the Phoenix and all the things that lead up to it. Right. You miss a lot.
Yeah.
So I went back and read this, and we've talked about it. We know what we're doing over the next few months, few weeks, whatever, regarding these What's Next podcasts. And, we're both got things that we're reading that we'll be talking about. And I went back and read this. And as I read it, there was a point where I just stopped and started looking through it, because this thing was written by Jason Aaron, Brian Michael Bendis, Ed Brubaker, and Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah, I remember when this was published, this being a big, like, collaborative project for all the big writers at Marvel during the early 2010s.
Yes.
And you had a bunch of legendary artists on it, too.
The artists are John Romita Jr., Oliver Capel, Adam Kubert. Mike Deodato is doing all the new Avengers books that tie into this. The Uncanny X-Men were being done mainly by Greg Land, with Carlos Pacheco doing some fill-in work along the way. Dude, this is a who's who of writers and artists.
Yeah. It's like they took all their big time writers and artists and said, put them in a room and said, give us everything you got.
Yeah. Which
y'all come up with a collaborative story and we'll tell it.
And this is what they came up with, man. And it is just ridiculously good. The art is amazing. The writing is amazing. There's an issue, and I forget where it is. It's not in the main AVX books. It's one of the other books, where Storm and Magneto and a couple of extra characters are just kind of stuck in they're stuck somewhere on Utopia, like locked in a room. Yeah. And that's the whole issue, is the four of them sitting around talking, and it's good.
Yeah. Well, you had Brian Michael Bendis writing the dialogue, so you can do those sort of like bottle things where everybody's just sitting in a room and talking, and it's good.
Yeah. If you read X Sanction, which is a 4-issue limited series that preceded it, it's done by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, dude.
And it's so crazy because I thinking about it, I remember this in my mind. This was kind of like a throwaway event, and then kind of flipping through it again to review it, I was like, oh no, this had huge ramifications and still does.
And still does, yes.
Especially right now with Jean Grey being alive again, because the Phoenix comes into this.
Yeah. Here's what happened. You back up to House of M. Yeah. Where Wanda recreates the world. And then at the end of House of M, she says no more mutants. And you go from millions of mutants to the 198. And I want to say that's from like 2006 to 2010. And that's kind of where the X-Men are, is they're this extinct species. There's 198 of them. They're struggling to survive.
Right. They went from becoming the emerging species on the planet to an endangered species.
Right. And they wrap that. They take that story. I want to say it's 2006, 2010. I'd have to look it up. But that's what leads us to this. Now, along the way, the only new mutant that's born in that period of time is Hope Summers. And she is considered the destiny of the X-Men.
Right. If you want to know more about what happens with her, I think we did a What's Next on, what was the name of that event where she shows up?
Shoot. I don't know.
I don't remember either.
One of the X events.
Yeah. Anyway, we did Messiah Complex.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did a What's Next on Messiah Complex, which is where she's born, and the ensuing, like, holy crap, a new mutant's been born. It's been a long time. So if you want to go, please go back and listen to that to get the kind of intervening story that happens between there and here.
Right. What everyone eventually determines is that being a Summers, being a Summers redhead, she's going to possess the Phoenix.
Yeah, being a Jean Grey clone.
Being a Jean Grey clone. The Avengers, and at this time it's Brian Michael Bendis' new Avengers team. So you're talking Wolverine, Luke Cage, that whole team, that group of Avengers.
Spider-Man, Miss Marvel.
Spider-Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Learn that the Phoenix Force is on the way to Earth.
Doc Strange, I think.
Yeah, and this is always also when there was like 50 Avengers.
Yeah, the Avengers team was humongous. In fact, they split it in half between, if I remember correctly, this was the period where it was the New Avengers and the Mighty Avengers.
I think it was the New Avengers, the Mighty Avengers. After this series, you get the Uncanny Avengers.
There was the Avengers Academy, which is like the Young Avengers.
Yeah. It was just, there were Avengers everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is because what happened, this is about the time that Bendis stopped writing Avengers and Hickman began his run, was sometime shortly after this, leading up to Civil War. Anywho, so the Phoenix is coming to Earth. They know it's coming for Hope. They know Hope is on Utopia. And Captain America takes a helicarrier, about 50 Avengers, and goes to talk to Scott Summers. Now, Scott Summers will eventually make the point that, hey, when you came to talk to me, you kind of brought a battleship and a bunch of people with you. Maybe if you'd come to talk, we'd actually talked. But he didn't. And another thing that we've seen here that really tips in this series is we've seen Scott Summers go from a Boy Scout to a hero trying to help his species survive, to a hero who will do anything to help his species survive, to an absolute raving madman.
Yeah, this is one of the events where you see another turn by Scott Summers. In fact, I'd say him being possessed by the Phoenix Force is where he makes that full heel turn.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that at the end.
Also, I forgot, this was the time when John Romita Jr. was doing Avengers, and he's also drawing this. And his work here looks good, and his work on Avengers looked like garbage.
Is that when this was?
Yeah.
Because I was actually looking at these books thinking, they look good, man. Why did we hate on Romita so much?
Because he did a run. He's a great artist, but he did a run on Avengers for a little while, and it looked bad, dude. It looked rushed. And my guess is he was under the gun, and he was just cranking out pages as fast as he could and wasn't taking his time. Because go back and look at Avengers from this time. It looks bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to these books where it looks quite good.
So essentially, the first act of this series is the Avengers fighting the X-Men. And we're talking the first 2 or 3 issues of AVX, all the crossover books, the Thing fighting Submariner. Wolverine sides with the Avengers throughout this whole thing. Wolverine fighting Cyclops, Captain America fighting Cyclops too.
Yeah, Beast does the same thing because he's of two worlds too. He's an X-Man, but he's been an Avenger as well.
Right. And this thing, it just becomes this huge brawl. Finally, they're separated.
Also, Namor's an X-Men at this point.
Well, he's a mutant. I mean,
he is, but this is kind of when they started shuffling him into the X-Men a lot more often.
In case I forget it later, I forgot it was in this series where he floods Wakanda and Black Panther looks at you and says, I'm gonna kill you for this.
This is where
you're gonna die.
Yeah, this is where that happens.
Yeah, and that's I don't remember what issue it is. My notes aren't that detailed, but it's in here somewhere where he just wipes Wakanda off the face of the earth. And T'Challa looks at him and says, dude, yeah, we're done. You're going to die. And he wasn't playing at all. Finally, they realize that the Phoenix Force is coming to the moon. So Hope teams up with Wolverine. they go to the moon. The Avengers get, X-Men get there, and the Phoenix Force is coming for Hope, and basically she flinches. Okay, she's like, I'm not ready for this. Right at that moment, Tony Stark has some kind of creation, because he's Tony Stark, that attacks the Phoenix Force. And instead of the Phoenix Force winding up in one X-Men or one mutant being Jean Grey, it winds up being divided among 5 X-Men, which are Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, Colossus, and Magik. And so the Phoenix Force, the power of the Phoenix is split among these 5 characters. Now, even with the power split among these 5 characters, they're still essentially gods. Okay, they're still, they still carry immense power. They carry so much power that they begin recreating the world. They begin solving droughts. They solve the energy issues. They
eliminate world hunger and poverty.
Right. They declare world peace. And at some point, a team's reporting back to Captain America, and he's like, okay, what happened? He's like, well, they sat down and talked it out. No hitting, no violence, no. Colossus sat down with them, and they talked, and, everything's good. Well, they have to do something. No, they didn't do anything wrong, man. So this goes on for a while, and eventually, of course, they start stepping over a line, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as we all know. And the tipping point actually is when Namor attacks Wakanda. And he does, and 2 things happen there. When he attacks Wakanda, he obviously offends the Black Panther and makes a mortal enemy of the Black Panther.
Understand, he doesn't just offend the Black Panther. He has violated. This is the first time that Wakanda in its history has ever been invaded or anything close to conquered.
Yeah.
This isn't just you piss the Black Panther off. You have made a serious transgression against Wakanda as a whole. This would be like if, Britain came over and dropped bombs on New York. It'd be that sort of transgression.
Right. We're talking like 100-foot wave swept through Wakanda.
Yeah, killed tons of people.
Right. But when he's defeated, and he is defeated, and Avengers show up and they do defeat him, his power of the Phoenix Force is taken from him and distributed among the 4. So at that point, Colossus, Magik, Emma Frost, Cyclops all become 20% stronger. Well, they get Namor's 20%. So you're like, oh, okay. So everybody stops and considers that. And you got a bunch of things going on at one time, because the Avengers are kind of waging this, what do you call a rebellious war? They're kind of raging jungle warfare around the world.
Yeah, it's an insurrection.
Thank you. Because they can't face the 5 Phoenixes, or 4 Phoenixes at this point, head on. They've got to take them a step at a time. And they're losing. Thor's getting beat. They're all getting beat. So the next scene is where Colossus and Magik has brought part of Limbo up into this volcano, and they've got the Avengers imprisoned there, specifically Thor, but some of the other ones also are imprisoned there in this volcano. And they show up, and they manage to rescue Thor, and they manage to rescue some of a few of the other heroes. Spider-Man winds up staying behind, but at the end, Colossus and Magik are defeated. And when they're defeated, that takes their power and gives it to Cyclops and Emma Frost.
Right. And as they take on more, as it was divided, the Phoenix was balanced. As it is condensed into smaller and smaller groups of people, that power begins corrupting more and more.
Well, it was already corrupting. So, I mean, there's like this scene where Colossus put feet on whales because he wanted to see them walk. And it didn't, the whales didn't do very well out of the water. The other thing that happened is there's this whole retro thing where the Phoenix has something to do with Kunlun. Mm-hmm. So Hope is taken by the Avengers, not against her will, but by Iron Fist. By all the Avengers eventually wind up in Kunlun because it's the only place safe from the Phoenix Force. But she winds up being trained for days, weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks during Kunlun, where she's trained to basically be disciplined to control the Phoenix Force, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I'm missing a lot, man, because this is 43 books and they're all really good. So I'm really skimming over this thing.
A great deal happens in this event.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep this thing under an hour.
Yeah, it is, in terms of things that happen and how much ground gets covered, it's as much as the Civil War.
Yeah, there's an issue, and I forget where Emma is in the middle of a desert, and Scott comes to talk to her, and she tells him, "Look, I'm losing my mind. Please don't go. I can't control this. Please stop me." And he doesn't listen. He just leaves. Which is just, dude, it's a tipping point. Professor X shows up at some point. Professor X, this is a time when Professor X is alive and walking. He shows up for now, and tells Scott, "Look, you got to stop this. Okay, you're out of control here." And he calls him son. They get going back and forth about, who is Xavier to call him a son, yada, yada, yada. They all swap words over it. Finally, they draw them out. This is about issues 10 and 11 of the event. And they're having a final showdown with him. Scott is losing the fight. So he takes the power. He literally yanks it away from Emma. Just doesn't wait for her to be defeated. Doesn't ask, just yanks her power. So at that point, he becomes Dark Phoenix. And the reason he was doing that is he was fighting Xavier. He was fighting Professor X, and he was losing the fight. And this is the point when he becomes Dark Phoenix, where he kills Xavier. He just
he vaporizes him into dust.
Yeah. This was when was this? 2010? 2012. This was 2012. They just resurrected Charles Xavier about a year ago in Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, he was gone for quite a long time.
Yeah, so that's 2018. That's 6 years. They left him dead. He's dead. This isn't him playing around. He's dead. The Avengers team up. They finally, and it's Wanda Maximoff who does it, because somehow her hex power is and Tony tries forever to figure it out, and he can't. But somehow Wanda's magic power disrupts what the Phoenix is doing. So Wanda and Hope attack the Phoenix together, and there's this cool scene in Kunlun where Wanda and Hope get in a fight, and they just total part of Kunlun. So it's just this giant crater. And Captain America looks at Tony Stark and says, "Dude, this is your plan? To these two are your plan? They can't even get along." And Tony says, "Yeah, but look at the destruction they did when they were fighting each other. Imagine what they're going to do when they're fighting somebody else," which is pretty cool. Eventually, they do turn on Cyclops. They defeat him. At that point, there's nowhere for the Phoenix Force to go, except for Hope Summers, who happens to be there. So, much to everyone's fear, she takes the Phoenix Force. Captain America's kind of learned his lesson, so he's like, "All right, nobody panic, nobody do anything. Let's just see what happens." And she literally takes the Phoenix Force, goes around the world, and undo everything that the 5 Phoenixes did. She just rebuilds the world to how it should have been, as if it never happened. Not literally, but from a structural point of view.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, everybody's like, "Okay, what are you going to do with all this power?" And she and Wanda start talking, and Wanda takes her and casts a spell and says, no more Phoenix. When she said no more mutants at the end of House of M, at the end of this, she says, no more Phoenix. And the Phoenix power is taken and distributed among all the people who should have the X gene. And the Cuckoos are
they're in Cerebro.
With Cerebro. They're with Cerebro, and they literally start seeing mutants pop up all over the world.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I think, is somewhere, and he's like, "Hey, a kid just grew wings and flew off. Is this supposed to be?" Sums it up in a nutshell. The coolest scene, and I don't know if it's in number 12. I think it's in number 12, but there's a 4-issue series that recaps it. And the coolest scene is in that series. It's Captain America and Scott Summers after Summers has been arrested. And
well, it's like 4 pages of issue 12.
Yeah, okay. Is that where it is?
Yeah.
And Cap's like, okay, you did this. Did you accomplish anything? And basically Scott says, there are mutants again. And there's hundreds or thousands of millions of us. So you could say I was successful. And as a raving madman, he did accomplish his goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By playing Russian roulette with the whole planet.
That's what Captain America says, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was always the thing about Scott Summers as a villain, was he got results. But, it's the method by which you achieve those results that is problematic.
Yeah.
But
This is
it also served to draw the Avengers and the X-Men together in unity as a force, because before this in the Marvel universe, most of the time they kind of let bygones be bygones. It's like, okay, the X-Men handle the mutant stuff, the Avengers handle all the other stuff, and we kind of just don't team up all that often.
Yeah, that was one of Scott Summers' accusation against Captain America in this. Is like, dude, where were you? All the times we were attacked by Sentinels, all the times we were attacked, you just left us hanging here. What happened?
Yeah, and all of a sudden we have one mutant problem that you think that all of a sudden gets your attention, and now you think this is your business.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is when the fight starts on Utopia, and it takes a real left turn when the Phoenix shows up, and all of a sudden everyone's the Phoenix. But yeah, it was I forgot how good this event actually was.
Dude, I totally forgot how good it was. I mean, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I remember this being good. Let's do a what next on it. But it wasn't until I just sat down and started reading it that I was like, holy cow, is this thing good, man?
Yeah, and you forget that this is one of those few events that we see occasionally where the ramifications and the things that happen have consequences that reach into even today.
Yeah, and this was also before you got event fatigue. It worked. I mean, the event worked. The giant crossover worked. It worked really, really well.
Yeah, and this is when you're putting the Avengers versus the X-Men, I think you're okay in doing a big crossover event like this. But it's also something that you shouldn't be doing once or twice a year. It should be, it should be a special thing that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you guys go read AVX and realize that is, I guess we have to place that in like to me, we have to place it in one of the upper echelons of, like, if you want to know about Marvel history, especially like the modern continuity, that's a must read. That's as much of a must read as House of M and Disassembled and Civil War and Secret Wars.
Somewhere in the last year or two, I've seen this list going around of Marvel events, the top 10 Marvel events, and I don't think AVX is on it. And it should be. It absolutely. You know what? It may have been in. I think it was in the Unlimited app as one of the places, and I don't think AVX was on there too. It should absolutely be in the top 10, certainly maybe in the top 5. It's great, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just as guilty of this. When I think back on AVX, I think I had thought of it as a whatever throwaway event that happened years ago, and then rereading it here, it was like, oh yeah, so much happened here.
Yeah. So much happened, man.
Yeah. But anyway, that's AVX, Avengers versus X-Men. If you want to read it, it is in the events tab under your reading list. on
Yep.
the Marvel Unlimited app. It's pretty easy to find.
I'm also going to, when I post this on the website at www.6monthsbehind.com, there's a website that all they do is publish reading orders for things. And I'm going to take their reading order for this event and put it there. And you can skip through, browse, as we've said before, read what you want to, don't read what you don't want to. But we're going to put it there so at least you have a concise reading order, because the two places you can find it in the Marvel app aren't complete.
Right. And I would say that the one downside of this event is that it does suffer from tie-in fatigue, where you have stuff that technically ties into it, but isn't necessary for understanding the story.
Right.
There's plenty of that. You can actually just read the Avengers versus X-Men main title and get all of it.
Yeah.
So, but there are some of the times that are pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, we have run long here, so we're going to wrap it up. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. Pat told you the website just a moment ago. Pat, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
I don't.
Cool. Well, we will see you guys next week for something entirely different, something all new and all different.
Yes, you will.
Yes. See y'all next week.
See ya. Dude, it just occurred to me that my thing isn't charging. Why am I not charging?
I don't know.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Wasn't plugged in properly. Okie dokie. We got one more in us, or you want to do it Sunday night or what?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let me scroll back to the top so we can start over, and then we won't have to do one of these for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 4, because I still actually haven't posted the Claremont X-Men.
What's the point of doing them if you don't post them?
Dude, I'm gonna look. It's been a week.
Okay.
Anyway, are you ready for, what is this, Identity Crisis?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to explain?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast, where we take a deep dive into the digital loan box that is Marvel Unlimited. Maybe. I'm Pat.
Let's do that again. That was awful. What are you doing?
I'm doing something.
Well, let's do it again. It was.
Oh, come on, work with me.
Dude, you sounded bored.
I'm not bored.
Okay, well, that's how you sounded.
Okay.
I don't know why there's an E at the end of long box, but
somebody didn't know what they were doing when they typed it.
No, I typed it, so I knew what I was doing, and documents didn't catch it. Anyway, let's.
You spelt it wrong. From the top, count us in. Here we go.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast, where we take a deep dive sometimes into the digital loan box that is maybe Marvel Unlimited. I'm Pat.
And I'm Sean.
And we're the guys from 6 Months Behind podcast, except we're kind of not this time. We decided to branch out. We decided to expand our horizons. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, we're doing something different this week, y'all.
Yes, we are. DC announced a few weeks ago at, was it WonderCon, I think, in LA?
I don't remember. It's Comic-Con season. I don't remember. There's
one of the Comic-Cons.
There's like 3 Comic-Cons a week. So
one of them. That they were expanding the number of books that are in their DC Universe app. So I thought, well, let's give this a whirl. And I went into it, and it's a great app. It is a different app from Marvel Unlimited. Okay. It is because the complaint that DC heard was there aren't many comics in it. If you look at it, there's really not. There's maybe 1,000 tops, but they're adding but they're adding new comics every day. I mean, we were talking about this when I was driving home because they've added Brightest Day, but they haven't added Blackest Night yet. So you're
the
like,
Green Lantern events, which it's like you literally have to read Blackest Night to understand anything that's happening in Brightest Day. They're literally part 1 and 2 of a single event.
yes. However, I went, and one of my favorite stories of all time is there, and it's called Identity Crisis. And DC's got all these crises. Okay, there's Crisis on the Earth, there's Ultimate Crisis, there's Super Crisis, or whatever they are. But Identity Crisis came out in 2010, I think. And they don't put the dates on their books for some reason. I don't know when it came out.
Oh, that's frustrating.
But it came out 2004. I'm sorry. It came out 2004. I didn't realize it'd been that long ago. And it reshaped the way the DC universe does business. So I'm going to give you a real quick history. Since we're talking about a DC event, I'm going to give you a real quick history of it.
Mm-hmm.
DC, of course, was in the 30s. You know, you got Batman, you got Superman, right? And there were these, they were what they were. They're Batman and Superman, you know, and the Justice League was all happy and smiley, and everybody fought for one issue and lived happily ever after. And Lee and Kirby came along with Marvel and changed that. They changed it in Fantastic Four. They changed it with the Avengers, and DC kind of changed. But they really didn't, because they never got as dirty and gritty and emotional as Marvel did. They just
they lack that human element that is the Spider-Man effect. So Superman was Superman, and he was good because he was a good guy.
Right. Crisis on Infinite Earths was in '86. Okay, they rebooted the universe, they fixed some of this stuff, but they were still good guys, you know. Well, Identity Crisis comes along, and what Identity Crisis is about is Ralph Dibny is the elongated man. Now, they've got two guys, the elongated man and the plastic man, who had the same power as Reed Richards, so I can give you something to relate to. And he's married to Sue Denby. And this is discussed in great detail in this book, that the Justice League has gone to great extent or great lengths to protect those who are affiliated with them, okay? To protect Lois Lane, to protect Sue Denby, to protect the Adams wife, to protect the Flash's wife and his kids. They're literally using technology from the Hawkman's world, technology from Mars, Batman's technology. They're using a mother box. I mean, these homes are secure, right? They're fortresses. The problem is, at the end of issue 1, you realize that a villain has gotten in there and killed Sue Denby. Through all this, somebody has gotten in there and killed her. Okay? So the next 7 issues are this mystery. It's a whodunit. But as you're dealing in a whodunit, so in issue 1, she dies. In issue 2, you got the funeral. Then at the end of the funeral, you got all the heroes there, and they all split up into teams, going to the people they think have done it. But there's 7 members of the Justice League, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. It's Green Lantern, Black Canary, Hawkman. What's the magician girl's name? Zatanna, and somebody else. And they don't go anywhere. And they all sit there and say, okay, we know who did this. Who did it? Dr. Light. Why did Dr. Light do it? Well, what happened was, years before, when they were on the satellite, Dr. Light found his way onto the satellite, and he raped, sodomized, and beat Sue Denby. Okay? Knew who she was.
That's a bit much.
That's what he did, man. When I say DC got brutal with this, DC got brutal with this.
All of a sudden, they thought, oh, well, if Marvel's doing moral quandaries, let's swing for the fences in moral quandaries.
Oh, dude, this gets worse, man. So at that point, Dr. Light is there like, hey, this is done, okay? Because I know who you are, all right? I know who she is. I know who all your wives are. I know who all your kids are. I know everything about you. You can throw me in jail. You can do what you want to do, but I ain't going away. And in about a week, everybody I know is going to know. and your families won't be safe. So the people who I just mentioned were there, and they have a discussion that becomes violent. They take a vote, and Zatanna mind wipes him. And she doesn't just erase the memory of Sue Denby. She doesn't just erase the memory of who their family members are. She makes him a bumbling idiot. Because Dr. Light up at this point had been a bumbling idiot. Well, it turns out he's a bumbling idiot because of that night there in the satellite where Zatanna made him a bumbling idiot. So a couple of issues go by and they realize, okay, Dr. Light didn't do this. Dude, I wanted to call him Taskmaster. Deathstroke is there. And there's like half an issue.
Thing.
Do what?
Same thing. Their personalities are a little different, but they have the same
character.
Yeah, yes. They're the same character.
They're the same character. Deathstroke takes on the whole Justice League and basically wins. Dude, it's freaking awesome. Well, they realize that none of the villains did this. So they get to research. Well, okay, if we can't find who did this, who did this? And of course, the whole way you're spending time with the characters in the family, you're seeing Clark protect Lois, and you're seeing, Batman trying to protect Tim Drake, and Tim Drake is spending time with his dad. Well, then whoever killed Sue Denby, I can't remember Ray Palmer's wife. I want to say it was Jane. It may not be. Anyway, they try and kill her. Then they do kill Tim Drake's dad. So Tim Drake's dad dies in this series. So at this point, you got Sue Denby dead. You got Tim Drake's dad dead. So about issue 6, we get to 2 other things. Number one was, turns out there was actually a 7th person on the satellite that night, except it was Batman, because he came back to the satellite and they mind wiped him also. And the Flash is who they're talking to. And he's like, dude, you mind wiped Batman? You took his memories away? And they're like, yeah, they did.
It went over real well.
Again, you showed them fighting and arguing and yelling and screaming, and but they did. But the point is, at one point, the Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, and Black Canary are standing there talking about it, and they're like, how does Superman not know this? And Oliver Queen says, because he doesn't want to. He can't hear us because he has selective hearing right now. And he was choosing not to listen to them because he didn't want to know what they were doing. And they said, how does Batman not know what you did? Because he doesn't want to know. If he wanted to know, he would. He doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to know what happened that night. And
dude, it's gotta be real bad for Batman to shy away from it.
Yeah. It's like he doesn't want to know about it. That's why he doesn't remember. He in other words, he knows there's time missing in his head. He knows he's missing a night. He knows something happened on that satellite, but he doesn't want to know what it was. He looks around, everybody's alive, everybody's well. Okay, we're all good. We'll just forget it then. Finally, in issue 7, it's revealed who did it. Now, we talked a while back about whether or not we should reveal the spoilers of these things. It's been 15 years, okay?
Right, and this is for a publisher and comic book service that we don't even normally do shows for.
No.
This is a one-off, so.
Turns out the Adams wife, Ray Palmer's wife, or ex-wife, did it. What she wanted to do was scare Sue Denby, so she went through the phone lines and went into Sue's, in through the ear, into her brain, and what she meant to do was just kind of scare her a little bit. What she wound up doing was causing an aneurysm, and she died. Okay, and of course I think it's one of the JSA guys, a couple of the JSA guys are doing the autopsy, and it's about that time that they find footprints where Sue walked on her brain. Not Sue, Jane Palmer walked on her brain.
So
it turns out, yes, walked on her brain too, because he's the atom, so he can get small. Well,
okay, all right,
yeah,
all right.
She used his powers anyway.
I got you.
So yeah, she winds up in jail. Everybody else winds up living happily ever after because Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman don't want to know about. Oh, there is one of the scenes where one of the issues, it's issue 4 because it's got Wonder Woman in the last one to cover. It's a cool cover. They take one of the villains they think might have done it, and she spends like an hour with the lasso on him, asking him questions. And they're like, he told us everything. He told us everything about everything, and he don't know what happened here.
Yeah.
Dude, this book is outstanding, and it changed the way the series, I should say, 7 issues. It changed the way that DC did comics. It changed the way that they wrote comics, because it took them from the playful little guy we were talking about at the top to, okay, we're also the guys who published Watchmen. Okay. We're the same people. And now we're going to bring it over into our mainline comics. We're going to bring in Superman. We're going to bring in the Batman. We're going to bring it here. And this is what we're going to be now. And this is the limited series that did it. It's a classic, man. And not many people have read it or know about it. Dude, it was friggin' amazing.
Who wrote it?
A guy by the name of Brad Meltzer, who didn't write a lot in comics. He wrote some for DC, did a couple of titles for Marvel. He mainly writes novels. He mainly writes fiction.
Huh.
He's had several books on the New York Times bestseller list.
Who did the art?
Billy Tan.
Oh, okay. Billy Tan did Shadowland. We were just talking about him.
No, I may be wrong, but it was somebody I read it and I was like, oh, he did the art.
Because we discussed Billy Tan on Shadowland not long ago.
Brad Metzler is the one who wrote it, and I'm sorry, Rags Morales did it.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that name. Doesn't ring a bell.
It looks really good, man. I'm telling you, it looks good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is great art.
Cool.
I'm looking at the page where Tim Drake's dad is dead, and the Boomerang died in this series.
The Boomerang,
dude.
Wow.
It's good, man. I'm telling you, this is where they went from these guys being goofy to, like, he passed the mantle to his son in this series, and you went from a goofy Boomerang to a guy who's a homicidal maniac killing people with the boomerangs. You know, so he went from the Flash's rogue gallery to being this goofy character to, you know, he's hardcore, man.
Yeah, hardcore villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where they turned the corner, man. It's good. It's really good.
Well, that's Identity Crisis. And we should probably discuss a little bit. The reason we're doing this at all is that DC announced that they're going to start adding more comic books to this service. So you decide to hop in and check it out.
Yeah.
And you realized, you know, they're really promoting their TV shows and video content here. But it seems like the feedback has been, you know, your video content's great, but, like, I want the comic books too.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm enjoying your video content, I should be able to read the comic books that it's all based on. So yeah, it's what, $7.99 a month?
$7.99 a month, man. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm still in the 7-day free trial, but I can tell you, I'm going to keep the service. I mean, I've already talked to Renee about budgeting the money, making sure it's not a problem. Dude, I'm looking at Dark Knight's Metal right now. Dark Days Metal. I'm looking at the Metal series, which apparently was added in the last day or two.
That Metal stuff's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, I read the original. They've got a couple, like, mini series that deal with all that stuff, but I read the first one, the original one, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So yeah, I might, when they start expanding the library a little more, which I think they plan on doing later this month.
Dude, they're doing it daily. I can tell you by the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah. I might give it I'll do the 7-day free trial. That's for sure. Now, if anyone's listening to this going, oh my gosh, I hope I get a DC podcast where we talk about all the stuff in their digital comics. That, unfortunately, that's not happening. Much as Pat and I would like to do that, we simply don't have the time or resources.
We just don't have time, man.
Yeah, we can only read every comic book published by one of the major publishers, not both. So,
right.
Yeah.
You may get one of these every now and then, but no. It ain't happening.
And don't think we're going to start doing what's next on Image Comics and Dark Horse and all these other. This was just a one-off thing we decided to do. It, you know, may not be the last one, but this is not our mainline content. So don't get your hopes up. Sorry if I've squashed your
But
dreams.
send us some emails, and if you like it, maybe we will do more of them. Not a lot, but because there's only so many hours in the day for us to have a life and read comic books and still keep our IQ above a certain level. And
right. I mean, I read a ton of comic books, and I still have to make time to read other more important things.
Right.
Not important, but things that aren't comic books.
There you go.
You gotta read, more concrete things from time to time, especially when you read as many comic books as we do. So,
Dude,
you got to
we read
about,
a bunch of comic books.
You got to read about, politics and history and all those other things.
This is a really good app, though. I mean, that's the thing is when I dove into it, I was like, this is really good. So the problem with it, and we'll wrap it up with this. I'm looking at the Batman. Okay, Batman, sometime in the last month or so, came out with issue 1000. There is.
Well, it was Detective Comics 1000. Batman's in the.
Okay, I'll go to Detective Comics. Hang on, I'll go to Detective Comics. Dude, there's a bunch of Batman stuff.
Well, I mean, he's their most popular character. You'd expect that.
That's Detective Comics. There are 200 issues.
Oh, that's
actually it's 198.
That's not serviceable at all when you have 1,000 issues.
Yeah, there's 198. So that's what people have told them is, hey, you got to fix this, and they're like, okay, we'll fix it. Like Marvel, who can only upload about 50 comics a week, they're like, okay, we'll put a few thousand comics on there this month.
Yeah, but Marvel's already got a huge portion of their back catalog on there to begin with.
Marvel Team Up isn't there yet.
Some Marvel Team Up is there.
Some.
Listen,
all the Defenders books aren't there yet.
No, that's true too. Not all the Defenders stuff is there. But if there's something you want to read in Marvel, it's more likely to be there than there is from DC.
You're not going to go to the Fantastic Four and not have some of their issues there. There's a fraction of the Justice League books here. Just a fraction.
Yeah, there's a fraction of the Batman stuff, the Flash, Arrow, Green Lantern.
I'm looking. There's 99 issues of the Justice League.
Yeah, no, that
and nothing before 1997.
Yeah, no, and yeah, we may come back to this in 6 months or a year and see what they're doing, and see how much has changed, and go, remember back in the day when they didn't have any comic books on this app, but it's going to take them some time to put everything here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
However, Identity Crisis is good and it's enjoyable. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a DC thing I've never read, so I will check it out. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That is the number 6 months behind @gmail.com.
The website is www.6monthsbehind.com.
That's going to wrap us up for today. Pat, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
Adventure Comics, 1935 to 1990, 3 issues.
Yeah, no, they will rectify that situation post haste, I'm sure. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.